All right. So let's get started. So Ruth gave me a light introduction. Again, my name is Derrick Wlodarz. I run a local technology consulting company called FireLogic. We started off just doing computer repair for friends and family, and it's now grown into a business where we primarily do commercial consulting. We like to say we play the role of the IT department for small businesses that can't afford to hire an IT person. So that's really our niche today, what we do primarily day to day as a business. We have about a team of 10 people now. And actually today, I'm hoping to cut this about 15 to noon or about noon sharp as we're having our open house in town. So if you're interested in coming by our open house to meet the rest of our team and have some free lunch, and we are drafting off a Surface tablet today actually, so you can have a chance to win that as well. It's about a $300 nice Microsoft tablet. So if you want more information about that, I'll provide that off recording later on after the video is done. I've been doing security for many years now. I've been in IT professionally for about a decade at this point. I started working professionally in IT at Maine South High School, just around the corner. That was actually where I graduated from in 2005. And I've always had a strong interest in security and privacy, especially with how intertwined all of our devices are becoming this day and age, with all the tablets and smartphones and computer devices and the internet connecting everyone, right? There's a big gaping hole in that equation, which has always been security. And I want to shed a little bit of light in terms of how we're helping customers stay secure and the things that you should be doing with your devices to make sure you're not falling victim to things like botnets, which we're going to dive into right away, or malware or ransomware or keyloggers, all those different things that are affecting our computer systems today. So I'm going to go over all those risks, and even though we've run this class a few times in the past, I have re-updated this class for 2015, so some of the new things you've heard in the news we're going to be covering and making sure this is as fresh as possible for everyone. I'm certified by Microsoft in a few different areas, and I'm also certified by the Computing Technology Industry Association in the area of security. So I like to think I know what I'm talking about here, so I would ask everyone to feel free to ask questions as we go along. I have no problem. We have a small crowd today, which is great because we can go ahead and I can dedicate more time to any questions anyone has. So feel free, speak up. We'll be able to cover everything we need to within the hour and a half, 2 hour span that we have here today. Okay? Just a quick note on some of our upcoming classes that we have going on. Let me actually turn off the little pin bar up here. Some of our upcoming classes, we took a little bit of a break. November, December, January, as Ruth knows, we need a little bit of a resting period after a lot of classes we did last year. But we're getting back in the groove now. Springtime is upon us, so that energy is back. So we're actually going to be doing, in April, we're going to have our first help desk of the year here at Niles Library. So that's going to be next month, Saturday, April 18th. That is an open session. You can come by with any questions you have about your computer, your tablet, your smartphone. I will have at least one or two of us here from our company. Ruth will be here, and we will answer any possible question we can about computing or questions or things that you have going on. How do I do this? How can I get this to work? How does I do this on my smartphone? So any things of that nature, you can come by and ask us free of charge for 3 hours on Saturday, April 18th. So take advantage of it. We only do that once in a little while here. So feel free to come on out. And we're going to be rerunning our Maintaining Your Home PC class on Saturday, May 16th, 2 months from now. Fairly popular class that we run about once a year, and that goes over all the secrets in terms of how to save money on printing, how to save money on when buying a new computer, how to properly purchase software, where to find the best discounts and not get taken for a ride online. All that kind of stuff we're going to be covering in that Maintaining Your Home Computer class on Saturday, May 16th. It's a very good class. A lot of those things that you have not shared in public that technicians like us know about, we're going to be giving away those secrets in that class. So it's a pretty good class. And then later this year, I'm going to be scheduling for us to do a Windows 10 class. Windows 10 is going to be coming out this summer. Anyone that has a Windows 7 or Windows 8 computer is entitled to a free upgrade to it, so you might as well take advantage of it. We're going to be teaching all the ins and outs of how the new system works As soon as that's released, and Microsoft's saying that should be out about July, August or so. So probably in the October, November timeframe, we'll be running the first Windows 10 class here at the Niles Library. Okay? Click something wrong here. All right. Oh, wrong way. So today's agenda. Got a few things I want to go over with everyone. A little bit of a smorgasbord of topics in terms of staying safe on the computer, staying safe on a tablet. I already mentioned we're going to cover some things with smartphones, with tablets as well, not just computers, because as we all know, all of our smartphones in our pocket are really little computers. They are connected to the internet at all times these days. So in some ways, they're even at further risk than our computer systems are. So we'll go over a lot of things related to the phones too today. I'm going to start off with a little bit of an intro video on botnets. I think botnets are one of the most pressing problems going on with computer systems and the Android phone and tablet ecosystem out there today. So that's, I think, a pretty important topic we need to cover. So that's going to be our first item on the agenda. And I'm going to be showing a little bit of a video that introduces what this concept of botnets are. You probably heard about them on the news. And we'll go over how you can mitigate the risk and protect yourself and not fall victim to that nasty security risk. A lot of the rest of the class is going to be structured in a myth versus facts sort of style. And I do that because, again, I see that a lot of things that are perpetuated in the industry and things that people hear on the news tend to be a myth versus facts sort of a discussion. So I wanted to restructure our class and present some of the topics in that manner. Of course, I'll be providing tips from us, from the professionals throughout the whole class. And again, we're going to have some time for open Q&A at the end. But again, feel free, raise your hand if you have a question that's pertinent to what we're talking about. I'll answer it, no problem with that. So everyone has an agenda sheet. Again, it goes over all the different things we'll be covering, and you can use the white space to write any questions you have or little notes that you want to take as we go along. All right, so I want to throw a question back out to everyone here in the crowd. No one here is the same that we had at some of our previous security classes, so it is not a repeat question for you, except for Ruth. She can't chime in on this. But I want to ask everyone else, in terms of security, and since this is a topic that caters to all of you here in the crowd, it's not necessarily for myself, I wanted to ask, what is it that scares everyone here in the crowd the most about computer or internet security or smartphones or tablets? What is it? What's the burning topic on your mind? What's the biggest thing? What's the biggest reason you came here today?
Access.
What's that?
Access.
Access?
Access in the sense of you can access the internet through a wireless router in your home. You can go out to Paneras and access it through their Wi-Fi. You can
wireless.
use your iPad or your iPhone as a hotspot.
Mm-hmm.
So are there certain ones that are more secure than others?
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you brought that up. We had a separate thing that we actually started off our previous classes on was rogue Wi-Fi, and I took that out to make room for something else today. But I do want to cover that really quickly with everyone. It's
okay.
rogue Wi-Fi.
And MiFi.
And MiFi.
And MiFi.
So MiFi is sort of a goofy little term that is just for when you have set up Wi-Fi off your phone or use it as a hotspot. That's called MiFi. My personal Wi-Fi.
Well, supposedly there's a
or the external little hockey puck devices that you can
the
get.
little external one. Yes.
Yeah. So those are usually called the MiFi devices, even though you can broadcast the same thing off your phone as well. But again, those little personal hotspots, the MiFi devices, which are usually pretty secure and safe. Those are usually good because you don't fall victim or risk to falling onto one of these rogue Wi-Fi networks. If some criminal is broadcasting a fake signal and just filtering all the traffic that's coming through that can't happen with your personal device because, again, the cell company controls the access to that from start to finish.
Okay.
So there is no man-in-the-middle space for someone to come in and hijack that connection.
Okay.
For the most part. I guess I won't blanket the statement 100% as anything can happen these days, but for the most part, they are very secure and very safe kind of Wi-Fi connections you can use.
Okay, so I understand that through like your iPhone or your iPad, but with the little external device,
Mm-hmm.
who's behind that?
Who's behind it?
Mm-hmm.
The cell company. You can really only get those from the cell
You can only
providers.
get them from a cell phone
Yeah.
carrier. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so if it's a true Wi-Fi device, that means it has a cell signal that's broadcasting to the device, so it pulls from the cell tower, and all it does is rebroadcast this small little Wi-Fi signal for you to be able to connect your phone or your tablet or your computer when you're on the go. So that's really all it is. Just a bona fide cell signal just for the purpose of internet.
Okay.
And again, since that's controlled 100% from the cell tower to the device by the cell company, it's fully secured, it's encrypted, it's as locked down as you can get. So it's a very safe way to use internet if you're not sure of where to connect to when you're on the go.
Okay.
So they're good, it's just that they come at a cost. They're no less than about 30, 40, 50 bucks a month. So, on top of your cell phone bill. So, it's that price, versus security balance that you have to juggle.
So if you used your cell phone as a hotspot,
You get the same benefits. You just
Same.
don't have to pay a separate charge for the little Wi-Fi buck that they give you. So the cell phone's good. Again, some companies like to restrict how much of that you can do on your cell phone. These days it's becoming more open as it's becoming more common, so it's not as much of an issue as it used to be. But again, you can definitely do that. When I go travel, I was out in Connecticut a few months ago for a business trip, and I was using my hotspot because the hotel Wi-Fi was just junk, so I had no choice but to do that. So it worked just fine.
as far as that's when you're out and about, what's the possibility of using that instead of, like, I have a AT&T DSL account right now, and if I switched and just used my iPad, which has cellular, any problems with that?
You could do that. The thing you keep in mind though, if you're doing a lot of content consumption, what does that mean? That means you're watching a lot of Netflix or videos, things that people like to do a lot on their tablets and smartphones. You have to watch out because usually those cell connections, the Wi-Fi devices or cellular off of a tablet directly, they have data caps. They have caps in terms of how much downloading you can do on them. So can you fully replace an existing home internet connection with that? Possibly. You may be able to. But again, if you're doing a lot of video watching or games playing on them, you're probably going to run up against that data cap sooner rather than later. So I'd say you have to gauge your usage, and you might want to go ahead and try it out for a few months before you drop it. Call the cell company and ask them, hey, can you tell me what my usage has been like with my tablet, and will I be hitting my cap if I get rid of my internet connection? That's probably the best way to go about it. I wouldn't cut the cord for the internet connection before you find out how badly or how high you're going to be using that connection. So, and you can increase that data cap to higher numbers, but again, the price per gigabyte, as they call it, on the cellular connections is always much higher premium than it is for a home-style internet.
Okay.
So after a certain point, it doesn't become cost-effective to do that, which is what I wanted to get hopefully with that. So it's possible, but it depends on how you use it.
Right.
So hopefully that answers the question for you.
Well, yeah, because I was looking at it. I looked at my usage on the internet through AT&T to see what it was on average per month.
Sure.
To see if that was possibly doable. But and then if I'm at home and it's Wi-Fi, all I have to do is change on the iPad.
Yeah, we just have to make sure you're connecting to the Wi-Fi, because again, Wi-Fi always takes precedence over cell connections. And cell connection is a little more limited and always being throttled. Wi-Fi always is going to take precedence.
Okay, what if
But again, Wi-Fi depends on you having that home internet connection. So if you cut that off, you have no Wi-Fi to fall back on at the home. So keep that in mind.
I'm sorry, I guess I spaced
Well,
out.
you were saying you were going to use Wi-Fi at home, right? To connect to the tablet. Wi-Fi is powered through the home internet connection that you have. That's where it gets its signal and its juice from. So if you cut off the home internet connection, you won't have the Wi-Fi that you were talking about.
Okay.
So you would only have the cell connection on the iPad at that point.
Right, and that's not enough?
Could be enough. A lot of times it isn't though. A lot of people are, again, it depends on if you're doing a lot of video watching, a lot of website browsing that takes up a lot of what's called bandwidth. If you're doing that, you may not be able to cut that cord as easily. Because you may have a data cap of 3 gigabytes or 5 gigabytes, and a lot of people tear through that in the first week and a half of the month. So it depends on your use case. It really does.
All right, and so I could, if I didn't want to, I could just pull the plug on the internet, because it's not Wi-Fi, it's DSL. So I could just turn that off.
But again, if you have home Wi-Fi, the home Wi-Fi piggybacks off of that. You can't have Wi-Fi if you don't have a home internet connection.
I'm really so Then how can
So
I?
you have two different connections. To put it plainly, you have two different internet connections. You have the Wi-Fi that, if you're using Wi-Fi at the home, that's piggybacking off the home DSL.
Right.
If you get rid of the DSL, that Wi-Fi goes away.
Even if I use my iPad.
If you use your iPad and it's pulling off the cell connection, that's different. That's not Wi-Fi at that
Okay.
point. That's a cellular provided connection.
Okay, that's
so
what I'm.
it's not technically,
All right,
you know,
so
the Wi-Fi.
vocabulary is an
Vocabulary is a little bit different. I just want to make that clear because if you call them, they're going to make the same distinction with you. So.
Okay, so it's Wi-Fi versus cellular.
Well, Wi-Fi versus cellular.
Okay,
Exactly.
thank you.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? What brought you here today? What are you scared about? Have you heard in the news that's
Well,
anything?
I'm just afraid that I might click on something or open something on my cell phone or my tablet and it'll destroy, you know, my equipment. You know, that's
It's
my
possible, right? I mean, there's a lot of software, especially if you're using, you know, the at-risk platform, the Android phone system or the Android tablet system. They have a lot of security problems going on right now, and if you're using a platform like that, you have no choice, but you have to use some kind of anti-malware protection on there. You know, ESET and other companies make programs that you can use to protect yourself on there because you can open up a bad advertisement, you can open up a bad attachment, you can go to the Google Play Store and get something that inadvertently has something attached to it that could destroy or affect things on the phone or steal data from you, things of that nature. So it's possible. It's not as prevalent as we've seen it on the computer side of things, but it's becoming to that point on those platforms. So we'll go over some of the things today in terms of, you know, how to keep your tablets, how to keep your smartphone safe from that. So again, some of it also is safe browsing habits, right? You have to be careful what we click on. A lot of people that get infected with these things are the ones that just click, 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 click. Don't look at what they're clicking. Don't pay attention to what they're clicking. Every free game icon or advertisement that comes up on the screen, they're always clicking on it, right? And that is the crowd that is highest at risk for becoming infected from things like that. You have to always think before you click on something. Where did this come from? What's the source? And is it something I need to think twice about before I'm going to open up that attachment or that link to that?
I think Google has a selection you can check, like when you're searching like safe filter or something like that. Have you ever heard of safe filter?
I have heard of that, but that has nothing to do with malware infection. That has to do with things like filtering out pornography, filtering out, you know, sensitive material on Google searches. Yeah, that's not malware or security risk search on Google results. And that's the thing I want to bring up is that, you know, everyone thinks, oh, because I found it on Google, it must be safe. It's not necessarily the case, right? Google is just a big yellow pages of everything that's out on the internet. While they do their best to filter out things that are known to be, you know, malware related or things that are not good for your computer, they're not the internet police, right? They're not there to filter out every single thing, everything on the internet. So you can click on something you find on Google result, and it could have a website that you go to that infects your machine. I mean, it's possible. It happens all the time, right? Infected Google links are a big problem today. So it's not Google's fault you got infected. It's the website that you went to after you left Google that infected you. Or it could also be an advertisement on Google that was run by someone that was infecting people's machines due to rogue advertisements. These things happen these days. We have to be mindful of that. So Google is not the internet police. So if someone says, oh, I found it on Google, it must be safe, don't believe them. That is a load of crock. So, what are some of the things that some of you are doing in terms of best practices right now? Or what have you heard of and what have you been trying to do in your personal life to keep yourself safe online? I know you just got a computer, so what have you heard?
I just came to the library and I got a book and
Okay.
I'm reading it.
Okay,
And
which
I'm-
book?
I don't understand a lot of it. I mean, I'm a senior and
Mhm.
I always wanted a computer, and now I'm starting to, wonder if I did the right thing. I'm in early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
I just get a
Well, it's
little
never too late to get
nervous.
into computers.
I mean, I get a little nervous about security. That's my big thing.
Well, again, it's a big topic. There are a few basic things that you can do to stay safe. We're going to go over some of those aspects here today during the class. That's a big book. I don't know how much of that is going to fully apply to what you're going to be doing. It's a lot of reading material. Hopefully, I've condensed it down to the most important topics
Thank you.
because there's a lot of information out there. A lot of it's hot air, a lot of it's good information, but you know, I've spent the last 10 years filtering out what's the good, what's the bad, and that's a lot of what I'm going to be showing off here today. Okay?
Thank you.
So let's go over a short video. Today's video that I'm going to show is a short introduction to this aspect called botnets. Botnets are, for the most part, to make a long story short, criminals out on the internet that are making money off of infecting your computer and using your computing power to send out spam messages is a popular one, or push advertising out, or go ahead and provide the necessary resources to spread that infection to other systems in your home network or on your business network, things of that nature. So, big problem today. This started growing about 3-4 years ago, but it's getting bigger now. I'll talk about, you probably heard in the news that the Xbox and PlayStation networks were taken down around Christmas. That was a botnet-related attack that happened. Actually, it was targeting the routers that you have at home, the home internet, little DSL routers and cable routers. Those devices were the ones that these criminals used to take down these corporate networks. So I'll go over that aspect of it as well after we discuss the botnets really quickly. Okay. So let me play this. Sound's going to play off my laptop, but it's pretty loud. We got a nice tight room here, so.
Have you ever seen posts on social networks or emails under your name that you didn't send? Is your computer running slowly, or do you often find your screen filled with pop-up ads? All of these things could be symptoms of infection and might indicate that your computer is part of a botnet. But what is a botnet? A botnet is a network of computers infected with malware that responds to an attacker to perform any activity they want. These infected computers are also known as bots or zombies, and their master is called the botmaster. The infection will enable cybercriminals to control these infected computers remotely. So, how does it spread and why? When surfing the internet, it is very common that we download software for useful and legitimate purposes. But while some software appears to be safe, once installed, it can actually have a malicious purpose. This is known as a Trojan and is a major cause of the spread of botnets. We can find them in social networks and all over the web. With this army of zombies, botmasters can use these networks to commit crimes such as financial fraud, malware distribution, identity theft, mass mailing of spam, storing illegal content, and they can even collapse websites through massive attacks. With a single botnet, cybercriminals can commit many crimes in one day and put users' sensitive data at risk. Meanwhile, they often don't even know they're infected. So, how do we protect ourselves? Firstly, it's important to have a security solution with a firewall to filter communications between your computer and the internet. Also, be careful when downloading apps or programs from the web by verifying they come from official, trustworthy sources. Make sure that all software is updated to the latest version, as patches will solve vulnerabilities in earlier versions. Finally, if you do not want to be part of a botnet and have your computer overrun by zombies, install ESET Smart Security with botnet protection and enjoy safer technology.
It's a little comical approach to the topic of botnets. So that was a quick introduction to botnets. In case the audio was a little bit too weak for some of you, you couldn't hear what was being described there. What they were going over is this notion of your devices. It's not just computer systems, because people's home routers are being taken over. They're talking about potentially these Wi-Fi fridges and Wi-Fi dryers and washers that people are buying these days. These are potential targets for this. This whole concept of the Internet of Things, where everything's going to have an internet connection. It's good in some ways, but it's bad in many other ways, because again, it opens the door for the criminals, because the problem with these devices is that who's watching over to make sure this is updated? Who's going in to make sure that the passwords have been changed for these devices, right? If you're going out and buying a dryer and just connecting it to your Wi-Fi, most average person's not following all the proper measures, that I would be doing or a professional would be doing to make sure that that device is secure and up to date and properly being maintained, things of that nature. So again, that's one small thing I want to say, to be careful about how many things we're putting in our homes that have these wireless connections on them. I know the Nest, the systems with the smoke alarms that are connected, and thermometers and all these things, everything seems to have Wi-Fi these days. But again, it's one more point of attack where you can get taken over on your home network and have these criminals take these devices from behind your back. Because again, it only takes one vulnerability, it only takes one little aspect or area for these people to get into, and they can gain control of these different systems. And the problem is, we've been using computers now on the internet for the last, 20, 25 years at this point? And even these days, most people that get infected by these malware items that put them on these botnets, most people don't even know they're infected, right? People just call us and say, oh, my computer's running slow, I wonder what it could be, right? Most people don't know that it's because their PC might be part of a botnet of this nature. So if it's hard enough to find out on our computers that we've been taken over, I can only imagine how hard it's going to be to make sure our washing machine or our fridge that is on Wi-Fi, that it hasn't been taken over by this. And now we're talking about cars that are going to be connected to the internet and going to be getting cellular signals in terms of command and control from the auto companies. So I don't know. I'm wary. I'm a little skeptical in terms of how the security is going to play on that. But one thing I just wanted to share with everyone here is, just be careful, be mindful. If you're going to be getting one of these internet connected cars, ask the proper questions. What kind of security is in place? How is it being updated? Things of that nature. Because the internet is a great force, but it can be used for evil and bad deeds. But the main topic of botnets, so again, the ones that it's affecting the most these days, the Android phones, the Android tablets, and computer systems. Windows PCs to a small extent, Mac computers as well. So where do these items come from? And we're talking about a little bit of this in terms of infected advertisements and infected websites that come off Google results. But these things can come off all kinds of different places. Email attachments, right? They're still an issue. It's reduced. The number of viruses and things going over email has come down slightly. But again, email is a very popular way to spread these things, because again, if your friend's computer gets infected by one of these botnet infections, and you get an email from that person that has an attachment, and you think, oh boy, it's from my friend Johnny, it must be a good message, it must be an attachment that he intended to send me. Not always the case, right? So email can be sent from your machine or your friend's machine inadvertently as part of this, gets sent to you or the entire address book, and then you open the message and you become infected at that point. So that is a relatively still a big problem that's going on there today. Facebook. This is the big problem for the teenagers these days. This is how the teenagers are getting infected, right? They're going on the Facebook, they're going on Twitter, they're going on Instagram, things like this. And of course, the criminals know this. The criminals know where the teenagers and everyone wants to hang out, so they're using that to their advantage. They're putting infections on machines and putting links up on people's Facebook wall pages with links to infected websites. Hey, check out this free game. Check out this great website. Looks like it came from your friend, but it's from a criminal that masked themselves as your friend off their Facebook account. So it does happen. So be very mindful. Before you click on a link on Facebook, I would say roll over that link, just like you can on any other website. Roll over the link with your mouse and see what web page shows. Where is that link actually taking you to? If that's a link that looks like it's going to a Washington Post news article, roll over with your mouse and see if it's actually going to the Washington Post, or see if it's going to some numerical address, some bogus website that's going to install something behind your back. So you can do that due diligence before you click on a link on anywhere on the web. Every single link on the web, for the most part, you can highlight with your mouse and roll over it, and it'll show you in the bottom right or bottom left in terms of where that's actually going to take you. So that's a very simple way that you can stay safe before you click on something inadvertently. Pop-ups, again, these are not as prevalent today as they used to be, maybe 10, not 10, but perhaps 6 to 8 years ago, as most browsers are blocking pop-ups these days. But again, something to still be mindful of. Usually pop-up windows don't have anything good in them. They're either advertisements or they're trying to install some bogus software on your machine. So be careful with pop-ups. Yes?
I was told once that you don't know what's under the X for the closing of that window, that you should use a Control F key.
Yeah, problem is though that different programs use different F control keys, so it's not universal across the board. In general, what I tell people is always click on the X that's on the outer edge of the window. So sometimes what I've seen these sneaky advertisers do, it's especially common on download websites where they offer free downloads. There's a lot of good stuff on there, but sometimes there's bad things on the website. So what they'll do is they'll put a little pop-up up that has a window inside of a window. So the inner window is the advertisement, and it looks like a window, a box where you can click on close, but the outer part of it is the traditional window. Always click on the outermost X button to close out of it. Because the innermost item is always the advertisement. Any part of that is the full ad. So they're trying to trick you into clicking on it inadvertently. That's what they're getting at. So if you know the F command key, you can definitely use that. That is the safest. But again, there's different F control keys for every program. So there's not one command I could tell everyone to use for that. Okay.
Would that be similar on a Apple?
Apple don't have F keys on them. I wouldn't even know what. There is a keyboard shortcut you can use to close out on the Mac devices. I just don't know what it is off the top of my head. But it does exist. Every computer system has some sort of keyboard combination that you can use to force close windows out for yourself. Ads on Google, I talked about that already previously. Don't click on advertisements off of Google. There are a lot of good ones out there, but again, there are a lot of bad ones. There are a lot of ones that are fake support websites, fake support companies. The callers from the fake Microsoft support hotlines that some people have probably been called from. Those kind of guys are running a lot of those advertisements. So be careful with ads. Flash drives, you wouldn't think that these become infected. I used to work at Maine South High School. We had the whole school. We had about 1/4 of our machines infected from flash drives that were infected that teachers were passing around to one another that had an infection on it. So flash drives are still an issue today. Even though they're not as much of a problem, it still can happen. So be very careful. If you're plugging in a flash drive from someone that you don't know where it was or whether it was cleaned properly with an antivirus program, make sure that you have proper antivirus in your computer before you plug it in, because that plug-in process could be the point of infection for you immediately, and you wouldn't even know it. And the phone app stores, especially for the Android phones out there, it hasn't really been a problem for the Apple side of things. They've had a few small infections here and there, but especially on the Android side, this is where the most problems are happening, both the tablets and the phones for the Android side of things. They have a lot of criminals that are taking advantage of those stores, putting in fake software, free games, things that people are searching for, and they're using those accidental searches and search results to get you to download some of these apps that have bad things in them. So be careful with the phone app stores. Before you install anything, this is something I hark on in our Android tablet class that we do sometimes, is before you install an application, check the rating on it. Check what people have said. Make sure it's got at least 10 to 20, well, I'd say more than 20, maybe 30 or 40 people that have installed it and reviewed it, so that you can get a point of reference in terms of whether or not that is a good program or not. Right? Usually the people that get infected are the ones installing these apps off the App Store that haven't had any downloads yet. And these are the ones that are fresh, the programs that criminals have posted on there, and they're looking for the people like yourselves to go ahead and find them and download them by mistake. So always check the rating. You can always see how many people have downloaded any app and how many people have reviewed it and what have they said. And most of the time, if people have gotten infected from something, they're going to put a review up there that says, hey, this is an infectious item, don't install it, stay away from this. So keep an eye on that. Don't install something just because it looks too good to be true. Best tips for staying safe in terms of keeping your PC clear of the botnet situation. I tell this to the teenagers all the time. They're the ones that are always having this issue. The free stuff, the free music, the free movies, the illegal downloading that's going on these days. That is the place, the #1 spot where people are getting these infections. Especially the teenagers, is the free music websites, the free movie websites. I know that everyone wants to get something for nothing these days, but again, sometimes it's too good to be true, and a lot of these free websites with the free games and free music, you're getting the free games, or you're getting the free extras behind the scenes as well. And that's the place where they're spreading a lot of this garbage. Use strong malware protection on your computer. Again, that goes for Macs and PCs alike. ESET and Kaspersky are our two favorite products to recommend to people. Very cost effective, doesn't cost very much. As I tell everyone, the cost of purchasing a good protection program is a lot less than it costs a company like us to clean your system professionally. A lot less. So spend a few dollars and get your PC protected.
What's
Yes.
an heuristic?
What's that?
What's an heuristic?
Heuristics are a newer form of protection that watches patterns in terms of what happens on your computer instead of just going by straight definitions. So the antivirus industry for so many years has always been based on definition-based protection, which is antivirus company finds a threat in the internet, it builds something into their software to update with, and then it tells your computer how to protect against that. Well, these days, with thousands of new viruses coming out every day, they can't always keep up with that. So that's why heuristic-based programs, especially like ESET and Kaspersky, they can watch patterns and say, hey, this is how viruses of this nature have infected people before, and we're going to stop this thing on your computer based upon how it's acting, not based upon the signature or the identity of it. So that's what heuristics-based protection is. And here's also probably the biggest one. I probably should have put this first. This is probably the first most important item on there is use a modern web browser. If you're using old versions of Firefox or old versions of Google Chrome or an old computer running Internet Explorer 7 or 8 or 9, you are at high risk naturally because you are using a software platform that has a lot of holes and bugs and openings within it for things that haven't been resolved or fixed yet. You always want to be using the latest version of the given browser of your choice. So get off the old browsers because that is the first open gaping hole that you're going to fall victim through. Okay? One last thing on the botnet situation. This was big in the news around Christmas time. All the people that bought the new PlayStations and Xboxes, their kids were trying to go online and play with them on Christmas Day. They couldn't do it because these guys called Lizard Squad, they're a hacking group out on the internet, they decided to take down the PlayStation and the Xbox networks behind Sony and Microsoft's backs. And how did they do this? Well, as this news article shows up here, they used hacked routers to take down those services. Hacked routers, they broke into people's home routers that are sitting in their houses, the little Netgear, little D-Link routers, Linksys routers that people purchased from Best Buy. That's how they got in there. They were pretty much scouring the internet for devices that had security holes and passwords that weren't changed on them, and they piggybacked into them. They put in their own code behind the scenes, and they were using that to power this massive botnet that was able to take down the two biggest gaming services in the world today. So they were bragging about it. That happened. That was about a 2-day outage that occurred. But again, that's just the tip of the iceberg. This is only the beginning for what these bad guys are going to be doing out there. So, one thing I'm telling people is that a lot of these routers that we purchase from Best Buy have decent protection. The big problem with those devices goes down to one aspect. They don't receive consistent updates. And the only times they are updated is when people like myself, professionals, come in to help someone and we say, hey, let's update that router for you that you have in your home. So to get around that, what we're doing a lot of time these days is recommending people move to a device that is called a cloud managed router. Company that we use and work with a lot on our business side that we're using from the residential side now, a company called Meraki. They're a subsidiary of Cisco, one of the biggest players in internet systems today. They make a device called the Z1, which is a cloud managed router, which means it's fully managed and also updated consistently every single month over the internet for you. I have this in my condo, my parents have it, and a lot of our new residential clients we've been installing new routers for have this device. It's a little more expensive. It's going to run you about $200 or so. That comes with a 5-year license. And a license allows you to get support 24/7. It gives you the updates that come out every single month. But again, this is how we're battling these bad guys because now we're getting consistent updates coming to our router instead of us sitting there and waiting like ducks until we get infected and may not even know that we've been taken over. So there's probably some people here in town and in our local area that were part of this big botnet where they got infected on their home routers and they were helping the criminals inadvertently by mistake. So that's one big thing. So moving to a cloud managed router is a good way to protect yourself and keep your home safe if you're interested in battling the bad guys. Some quick stats. I'm not going to spend too much time on statistics. And again, I wasn't able to pull the latest numbers from the 2014 report. They're always a year behind on the Internet Threat Report from the company called Symantec. But just a few numbers that I wanted to share with everyone in terms of what the security landscape looks like out there. So targeted attacks, this is again numbers for 2012 since this was the 2013 report. Again, the numbers are relatively similar, so they haven't changed that much in the last few years. We've seen almost a 50% increase in targeted attacks. And a targeted attack pretty much is an attack by a hacking group or an individual that is doing hacking that is looking to get into your specific network or your specific business to do damage, steal data, take over your router, or do other things of malicious nature. The number of vulnerabilities that have been found in a 3-year time span has been going down. Actually went down in 2012 on us and has been trending downward a little bit. But again, the number of viruses and malware coming out on a monthly basis is still fairly high and getting higher. Again, because not only are Windows PCs a heavy target, now we have the whole Android landscape being a heavy target. So we have two big ecosystems that are huge targets for the criminals.
When you say vulnerabilities, are you just talking about products with holes?
Yes, could be products with holes, could be websites with bugs in them. It could be different kinds of aspects of software that has some kind of vulnerability that could be affected. So that's an all-encompassing discussion. Number of identities that were exposed per breach, an average number. So per breach, per Target hack, per Home Depot hack, all those big breaches that happen, about 605,000 identities were exposed on average per attack. So, and that number has been inching up right now. For the 2014 numbers, I think that's closer to 700,000 or 800,000. So it's definitely increasing as the bad guys are getting much more sinister in their activities. The mobile vulnerabilities, these are numbers for 2012, 415 unique mobile vulnerabilities back in 2012. That number is closer to 600 or 700 now. That has been skyrocketing, ballooning. And that's affecting all the different phone platforms. Again, heavily on the Android side, but on the Windows Phone as well as the BlackBerry and the iPhone side, that's also been happening as well. The iPhones got hit with a big hack with criminals that have been converting USB connections off of the iDevices and using that to insert malware into some select iPhones and iPads. So that's something that I heard about in the last few months too.
Are we supposed to buy some sort of firewall for the phone?
Again, they don't make any great platform yet for anything but the Android side of things, because that is the most targeted at this point. But yes, I would say in about a half a year or so, we'll probably have security software for all the major smartphone platforms. But if you're on an Android today, you can definitely go out there and get protection from ESET or Kaspersky, one of the big names. Okay? Percentage of all email malware that has malware links embedded with it inside was standing at 23%, which went down from 2011. 2011 seemed to be like a big year for that. But I think that has been going up again as email spam has been increasing a little bit, and especially people trying to do phishing attacks over email. Phishing is where they send a malware link in there and try to get you to click on it so that you go to an infected website. So phishing attacks are still definitely popular. And again, the email virus rate, 1 in every 291 emails in 2012 had a virus in it. That number has gone up a little bit as well. So quite a few emails that are still carrying viruses out there. And if you look at the number of phishing emails that are going out, 1 in every 414 emails is a phishing email. So again, email is a big target point for the criminals out there. Botnet numbers, this has gone up again in terms of botnet count because the routers are being infected. The Android phones are a big target now, and there's so many of them out on the market. The botnet count, I believe now is closer, it was 3.4 million bot zombies, number of devices that are part of these botnets. I think we're closer to 4.5 to 5 million at this point right now. So it's definitely has gone up again for us. And we can see that mobile malware increased by 58% from 2011 to 2012. That number has stayed fairly steady, if not risen a little bit. So 2013 to 2014 and going even more recently, mobile malware is still a big issue for us. And here's also an interesting one. Back in 2012, 74,000 unique web domains, websites that all they did was serve malware to computers. We had 74,000 unique websites that's the only purpose that they had. That number has gone up as well. So again, the infected links off Google, those inadvertent links that we go to that infect us, that's the number where that stood before. And again, I wish I had the most current number. But again, as you can see, the trend has been going upwards. So more and more websites on the web are solely just serving out malware for our computers. So even more reason, you got to be using a modern web browser. You have to be using good security software. And even goes back in the discussion of making sure you have a good router in place in your home, because that is the first point of entry for any criminal. What is that front door they're coming in? And that's the router that you have sitting inside your home. I always hark on this every single class. Windows XP and the old Office 2003 platforms. If you're still using these systems, I cry inside for you. Please get off these old platforms today. These systems, these two old pieces of software went extinct last year. That was actually long overdue for them. Windows XP was supposed to have been dead back in 2009, 2010, and Microsoft kept giving it reprieve after reprieve. Well, the time has come. They're both fully extinct and dead at this point. If you are using computers that are touching the internet using one of these two pieces of software, you are considered at high risk. Again, because Microsoft is saying you are on your own. We are providing no more support, no more patches, no more updates for these platforms, and anything that criminals are finding in terms of vulnerabilities, Microsoft is saying we're not fixing them. So you need to get off these old systems today. Most people have been pretty good about purchasing new machines and upgrading their systems, but again, if you have any friends or family still using these, they have to get off these platforms. All right, let's move into some myth or fact for ourselves in terms of what's true, what's not. So myth or fact, going off the topic of Windows XP. Unplugging my Windows XP computer from the internet will keep me safe. Do you think that's true or do you think that's false?
If you take it off the internet, you're not connected to anybody else.
It's true. But what if you go ahead and you're moving external devices back to that machine that potentially have infections, and that computer's not getting its antivirus updates?
A thumb drive.
Thumb drives,
Yeah,
external hard drives. Okay. Happens to a lot of people that we've worked with that went try to go down that route. So yes, that is actually the point in which a lot of those machines do become infected. So that theory, and I hear it talked about a lot online about a lot of people that said, I'm going to keep using my old Windows computer. It works just fine. It has no issues. If I disconnect it from the internet, I'll be just safe and all fine and dandy. Well, here's the statistics that Microsoft provides. They watch over all the computers in the world that run Windows, all the editions of Windows, and they have these numbers they compiled last year to show us for every 1,000 machines that they've cleaned off with their tool that comes as part of Windows updates called the Windows Malware Removal Tool. Comes out every month. They target the most the most common malware that's out in the market. It's a seek and destroy product that they provide free of charge to make sure that at least all of the biggest pieces of malware are at least being cleaned off and targeted. So for every 1,000 machines they clean off, they see an infection rate of 11.3 for Windows XP computers, which is the highest number of any systems that run Windows out there. As you can see, the safest platforms happen to be Windows 8, and going forward, Windows 10 will be part of that. But again, usually the newer systems tend to be a lot safer than the old ones. And as you can see, Windows XP beats every other copy of Windows by more than double almost. So it's a very, very dangerous platform to be using, and Microsoft's own numbers do show that same end conclusion, that it's just very dangerous to be running Windows XP. And again, these numbers were compiled after support for Windows XP ended back in April 2014. So again, just want to hit home the point of don't keep those old computers running. If you need a little bit of time to get data off the old machine, do so, but do go ahead and move over to a new system. Myth or fact, keeping a password on my laptop will protect it in case it is stolen or lost. What do we think about that? This is a common thing that people ask me and say, I don't care if I lose it because I have a password on it. So what do we think in terms of, is that good enough?
I think it's false.
Let's take a look. That is a myth. That is a myth. Well, I'll qualify that. It is a myth most of the time because most people don't take advantage of the new technologies that allow us to also encapsulate our hard drives with what's called encryption. You might have heard that. The term encryption's been going around recently a lot more. A lot of the phones are starting to do it by default now in case you lose it. But you can also do the same thing for your computer system. You can go ahead and encrypt it. My laptop that I carry around, if I lost it, I really wouldn't care because everything I have in there is backed up to the to a secure spot, and I also have the full thing encrypted. So no one could go in there and take the drive out like this. 9 out of 10 laptops, you can take the drive out just like this. A simple technician, even an amateur technician, could steal a laptop, take out the disk drive just like that, connect it to another computer, and they have access to all of your things you have on there. So don't think that a password alone is going to be good enough to prevent someone to get access into that data.
Isn't the password on the lead gate into the hard drive?
It's the lead gate into your user account on the hard drive. Two different things. Criminal can still see data even if you had a password on there, because all he has to do is connect that drive. If it's a Windows machine or an Apple laptop, they connect that drive to another like system, so another Windows machine if it was a Windows laptop, and all they do on their computer is they say, take ownership of files, and it wipes away any password control that you had on the previous system.
Wow.
Simple as that.
Okay.
Takes nothing to do. Passwords are a false. When it comes to protecting your mobile computer system like that or a desktop computer, passwords are a good first security measure, but they don't solve the problem of losing that machine entirely. Because a good criminal can get into that and he can find everything that he needs access into.
What does encrypted mean? What does that mean?
Encrypted basically means that there is a secret key to get into your hard drive that is beyond what a password provides. It works in unison with a password. So the password is sort of the first layer of security that opens up the secret key to the padlock. So imagine if your hard drive had a padlock on it, that your password, in conjunction with that special key, allowed access into all the data within that hard drive. Without that special key, if that drive was taken out and plugged into another system, unless that special key, that special password was provided, no one would be able to see what's on there. Everything would be gobbledygook. It would be mysterious information.
So is that something that's done with some kind of special software, or is it built in?
It's actually built in, starting with, I believe Macs have had it for the last 1.5 to 2 years, and Windows computers, starting with Windows 8, have had it built in as well. On the Windows side, it's called BitLocker. It's a free feature that has been included with Windows 8, and it's going to be in Windows 10 as well. And on the Mac side, I forgot what the exact term is. There's some kind of term they have, but it's if you search or ask someone at the Apple Store, one of the Genius Squad members, about encryption on my Mac, they'll be able to tell you what that feature is.
So,
and it's fairly easy to turn on, and doing so is good again because if you lose that machine, unless that person is able to have that password, they won't be able to get into that drive.
So phones and tablets are not encrypted yet?
The phones and tablets, they are starting to get there. I believe iPads offer it now in the latest versions of the software. Some Android, some of the newer Android tablets offer it. And of course, Windows tablets have the BitLocker now built in, so they offer that as well. So it depends, I guess I'll say. It does depend. That's something you'd want to research and find out if you're buying a new tablet, whether or not your tablet can do it. Because usually the newest of the new Android tablets are only offering that right now. So it's a good thing to have because you're using a tablet more and more and keeping personal data and logging into financial websites or working on tax documents on there. If you lose that and someone gets access to it, you know, who knows? Who knows what could be lost as part of that? And the biggest culprits are the laptops, right? That's where we keep more and more of our information. We're doing a lot of our TurboTax and Quicken and things like that on there. Easy stuff for the criminals to get access into and help them with identity theft and things of that nature. So encryption is a big thing. I would definitely recommend you look into it. And especially if you have a Windows 8 or a newer Mac system, you have the things that you need to be able to get that done. Take advantage of it. There's no reason not to. Myth or fact, formatting my computer hard drive keeps my personal data safe. What do we think? People tell me, I'm going to give my computer away to donation. I'm going to just format my hard drive, and everything's going to be nice and clear on it. And that is actually a myth. That is a myth because what most people think of in terms of formatting when they go through and reinstall their Mac or reinstall their Windows computer, all that does is just like this lady here on the hard drive, you're sweeping away the treasure map. There's a treasure map on your hard drive that tells the computer where all the information is, and all that formatting does is toss the treasure map away. The data's still there. If I connected that drive, or even an amateur thief connected that drive to a recovery piece of software, we could probably find most of that data that was on there. So the only time that doesn't apply is if you had that drive encrypted, as we just talked about, that they would not be able to do that kind of recovery. But for the most part, 99% of systems out there still today that aren't encrypted, just formatting the drive will not do what needs to be done. So you have two options. You can either do a 7-pass security wipe on that system, and you can download free software online to go ahead and help you with that. There's a program called Derrick's Boot and Nuke. Yes, it's named after me, Derrick. It's not my program, and the name is spelled a little differently, but if you Google Derrick's Boot and Nuke, it is a program meant specifically to wipe away disk drives. If you recycle a system with us, that is the program we use as a company to do a government-grade 7-pass security wipe on your system. So, very good piece of software, totally free, won't cost you a dime. The other option you have, and some people tell me they like to do this, is you can just drill through the drive with a drill. So if you feel like you can go ahead and do that, and you want to do that, that's fine. Drilling it, of course, will destroy it entirely. So either of those two options is good. But either way, make sure you think of that before you give away old systems. So before you donate that computer, make sure you think of, did I go ahead and wipe that drive or destroy that hard drive in there? Go ahead.
I was going to say, even if you encrypt your data, don't they have a decoder key that you can use? I mean, if your computer is going to read encrypted data,
Yes.
and it's coming out and you can read it.
Sure.
Now, I encrypt my data on my hard drive, and I give the computer away on my hard drive. Somebody's got an anti-encryption key or decoder ring, don't they?
If you give away the password, they can decrypt
password,
it.
okay.
I mean, yeah, if you give away the password, sure. But if they don't know the password, they won't be able to go ahead and guess that off that hard drive. I mean, there's no tool that they can use to do what's called a password attack on an encrypted hard drive that I know of. So
Very
that
good.
kind of brute force attack does not exist yet. So go ahead.
Do you then have to use 2 different passwords?
Yeah.
It depends. I guess I'll say it that way. If your computer doesn't have what's called a trusted platform chip, a TPM chip inside of it, my laptop happens to have it, I don't have to enter a second password. But if you bought a cheaper system on sub $400 range, they don't always include that chip. So sometimes you do have to put in a pre-password before you get to Windows, and then your usual Windows password. Or on the Mac side, same thing. You have to enter a pre-boot password, and then a regular password that you call your Windows password, or your Mac password. So it depends. So sometimes it is a little bit of a pain in the rear, but the extra security it provides, well worth it.
I have I hope this is pertinent. Keychains.
Sure.
I don't understand them, and on
So
my
what,
computer,
Keyring keychains, or are we talking about the Apple keychain?
Apple keychains, and every time, I don't know which is more secure. I like to learn my passwords, and the only way I remember my passwords is if I use them on a consistent basis. So it always says, do you want this computer to remember this password?
Sure.
And I always say no, because I want to remember the password. But I am under the impression that it might be more secure to use a keychain.
Well, that's a double-edged sword argument, okay? And I'm going to tell you both sides of it, and you can make up your mind in terms of which way you want to go. So the one side of the argument is, don't use something like a keychain manager. On the Apple side or on the Windows side, there's all kinds of them. LastPass or KeyPass, all these kinds of different things of that nature, where they can remember your password, and all you need to do is remember your one master password. So that's one way of looking at it. So the benefit of doing that is that you can use more secure passwords, stronger passwords, and then you just have one password you need to remember to get access into all the other ones you have stored in there, right? But the downside of the argument is, well, if that master password isn't great and someone finds that, they got the treasure trove to everything else, right? So they're like a kid in the candy store at that point. But the other side of the argument is, I'm not going to use the keychain. I'm just going to remember all my passwords. But what do people tend to do when they want to remember all their passwords?
They write them down.
They write them down, or even worse, they just make very junky passwords, very simple passwords. So they use the same password for every single service they use, right? So that's the two sides of the argument.
Okay.
Both have their pros and cons. I think the better approach is to use the keychain approach, as long as you're making sure you're using a very strong master keychain password.
Okay, I think I'm not totally understanding the concept of keychains. My impression was, if on a specific computer, like my Apple, and it says, you know, do you want this computer to remember your password? That puts it into some type of keychain
Sure.
mode. And then every time I use that computer, it'll automatically fill for me. But that, to the best of my knowledge, was slightly different from these programs or whatever that allow you to use one master password.
It's the same concept, actually. It's just that you're not using a separate program, you're just letting the computer internally do all the heavy lifting for you. You're just
Right.
using the built-in Mac feature that does it. They serve the same purpose, they serve the same function, right? It's just that your password that you log into your Mac with is your master password at that
okay,
point.
that's what I
So that's
need
what
to
I
know.
mean by using a strong password to get into your
Okay.
Mac, because here's the problem: when if someone's able to get into your Mac at that point, they have access to your whole keychain. They don't need
Okay.
anything more. I mean, yeah, there's sometimes where it'll prompt for you to enter that password once more, even when you're signed in, right? But again, if it's a very weak password, and I'll go over passwords a little bit later during the class here today in terms of weak passwords and what they look like, you're giving someone, again, easy access into the whole treasure trove of all your passwords.
Okay, that's the key point I was missing.
Yeah. So you have to make sure that password is strong. So again, I have people in the industry that tell me they prefer one way, they hate the keychain approach, and they have people that say, I swear by the keychain approach, and I hate to remember all the separate passwords. You need to figure out what's best for you, but make sure that you know the downsides and the benefits of each way of doing it.
Because part of my logic was trying to figure out if I'm constantly putting in a password, is there some way that information is easily accessible if somebody gets hold of my computer, because I'm constantly typing it in?
Well, the one thing that you would have to be worried about then is someone if they install a keylogger. If you had a malware item that got installed in your machine that was called a keylogger that watches keystrokes. So if they were recording keystrokes, the best password in the world will still not be able to get around that because they're recording everything you type.
And
So those are the scariest forms of malware out there. And again, you just need to have a good security solution to make sure that it's being watched over.
okay.
So
So what's that malware called?
what kind of malware is it? It's called keylogger. It's a keylogger, yeah. So keyloggers have been around since the dawn of computers, and they pretty much watch over all your keystrokes that you put on a machine. So any strong password will be caught by something like that. All right, let's keep moving. All right, here's a new one in the news. We see them all over the place. I was at O'Hare Airport. These are all over the airport now. The phone charging stations. Phone charging stations in public are pretty safe. What do we think about that? They want to make us think they're safe. You know what my answer is going to be about them. It's a myth. So here's one of them. I was at Woodfield Mall last weekend. I saw Woodfield gives them away at all the washroom areas now. So they're a nice thing. Again, they're a nice convenience for us to be able to use. The problem is, here's what happens with these charging stations. And actually, I guess I'll give you a proof of concept of where this happened in the most unlikely of places. They installed one of these phone charging booths that looked very normal and plain at actually one of the biggest hacking conferences last year. All the biggest tech experts and security experts came out to this conference, and they were plugging their devices into one of these little booths here. And they thought, oh, all is fine and dandy, right? And actually that was one of the research and conference topics, was being able to get in and siphon data off of your mobile devices, off of charging stations like this that have been taken over by bad guys. So what the bad guys were doing, what the security researchers were doing against all the attendees at the hacking conference, they were installing little middleman connectors that before the device got into the charging station, a little thing that siphoned off the connection. So the phone connected to the little device connected into the power port, but the bad guys were siphoning off the data that was coming across the wire on those connections. So they actually did a presentation at that conference to show all the people, all the text messages that they were able to siphon off, all the pictures that they found on the mobile phones. And this was at a conference of all the brightest security experts in America. So that just goes to show, what do you think would happen to you as the average person going out and using these charging stations out in the wild? You just don't know. That's the problem with these charging stations. Until there's a way for these companies to ensure that there's no tampering going on with these little dongles and connections coming out, or the ports on these devices, which I don't know how they would do that yet. Until there's a way to verify that, I would not be plugging my device into one of these items. The only way you can get around that is if instead of using the dongle they give you off this, actually what's smart on the Woodfield one, for example, they have the dongle that comes out where you can plug your phone into the dongle, but they also actually give you a standard power plug port, traditional power plug port. What you can do with that, right? Bring your own charger, plug your own charger into the power port, and charge off of your known verified charger. So that's the one way you can sort of get around this potential problem of using the pre-made dongles on these charging stations. Bring your own charger, put it in your purse, put it in your bag, and then you can use the public power port on the charging station. But do not, at least right now, do not use the dongles that hang off of these things to charge your phone, because you have no idea. I probably wouldn't be able to tell, and I know you certainly wouldn't be able to tell if that thing was tampered with. So I would say for the time being, at least for the next year or two, stay away from those dongles at the charging stations, because as the hackers themselves proved, they are very easy to intercept and get in the middle of. Okay? Myth or fact, free antivirus products are as good as the paid programs. Big question that everyone asks me. I get calls about this all the time at the office. My friends are using AVAS, my friends are using AVG. Derrick, what do you think about it? What's your thought?
False.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of companies out there that test out all the major antivirus products. One of the biggest, most trusted names is Virus Bulletin. If you get Consumer Reports magazine to your home, that rates all the different consumer products out there. Virus Bulletin is the Consumer Reports for tech guys like me for antivirus products. And these guys test out all the major programs. And even as of some of the most recent results, well, these are from 2013, these numbers they provided, AVG and AVAST were products that were at the bottom of the list. Most of the free antivirus products were at the bottom of the list. Even Microsoft has a free program called Security Essentials, right? A lot of people say, I'll just use the free Security Essentials. Microsoft makes it. It must be a good program to use. Even Microsoft came out about a year and a half ago and said, Security Essentials is not meant to replace a full antivirus product. It's meant to get you by as a program just until you can get a proper paid program on your system after you buy a new computer. And that was Microsoft's official statement. They never intended their product to be a full-blown security solution for a computer. So again, these numbers are from the Windows side. These are the detection rates. What is the success ratio? Percentage of malware found in a system. ESET, Symantec, Sophos, Kaspersky towards the top of the list. We move towards down the bottom of the list. McAfee, very bad product. AVG, AVAS, as we keep getting lower and lower. So in general, the two top ones, as you can see here, ESET, Kaspersky, those are our two favorites to recommend. Both of them have Mac versions of the product, and PC versions, and mobile versions for the Android platform. The problem is that it takes a lot of money to keep up with the definitions of these programs, all the updates that come out. So the big names like ESET, Kaspersky are pushing updates out every hour, hour and a half. The free programs only push an update out once a day, half a day. That's enough time for your machine to get to some kind of website or an infection that the program doesn't know about or doesn't have the heuristic capability to be able to clean off and take down before it actually affects your computer. So again, something I talk about all the time. I don't even know why this topic of free antivirus is even still being discussed, but there are a lot of people out there in my trade that are still pushing this belief that the free programs do a good job. And they don't. All the leading names in antivirus testing are continuously telling us for the last 3-4 years that the free programs just cannot keep up. So I do recommend, once again, make sure you have a good paid security solution on your system, because otherwise you'll be taking it to a company like ours, and again, I have no problem charging what it takes to go ahead and clean that system off. It takes a lot of time and energy, and those bills are no less than about $150, $200 per visit for things like that. So better to spend the $60 and just stay protected up front. Myth or fact? My friends tell me Macs don't get viruses. I think everyone knows the answer to that. There's a common trend with my myth versus fact here. This is actually false. So the discussion of Macs getting viruses, again, Apple told us in the late 2000s, Macs don't get viruses, Macs don't get viruses. Well, that's only true for as long as a certain percentage of the population doesn't use them, right? So Macs were always hovering at 3-4% of the population, but now Apple systems are at that 9, 10, 11% in the United States. What do the criminals say? Hey, that's a juicy enough target. You know, even that 10, 11% equates to a couple million Mac computers. That's more than enough for us to target, right? So that's why it's a matter of, is it worth it for the criminals to attack a certain platform? And the time has come, and this has been the case for the last 2-3 years or so, where the Apple operating system is worthy of being attacked because there's enough people to make it worthwhile for them. So even as of 2012, there were 10 dedicated, unique threat families of malware out there for the Mac that were available, and that number has only grown out on the market. I think that number is closer to doubled at this point near 2015. So it's definitely a problem out there. All the big security firms are talking about this. Sophos is a company that makes an antivirus product. I don't recommend them on the Windows side, but again, they have a research part of their company, and they said that, and this was actually just about a year and a half ago, 2.7%, 1 in every 36 Macs that were scanned with their security product actually were infected by Mac malware. And that was as of about 2 years ago at this point. So again, it's something to be mindful of, and again, don't believe in that notion that the Mac systems are not vulnerable. Any computing product that connects to the internet that we use today is at some risk to becoming infected. Here's another one. Mobile phones and tablets are in PCs, a lot of people tell me that, and don't need antivirus protection on them. That is a big, big, big myth. As of 2012, and again, that's not the latest number, 32 million Android devices were infected. That is a lot of mobile phones. That is a virus-carrying machine in your pocket or in your purse that travels with you on the internet everywhere you go. So that's a big, big, big problem. And again, the tablets are just as risky these days and why they need to be protected. At the Google Play Store, when these numbers were released, 23 of the top 500 applications on the Google Play Store were considered high risk. That's a pretty decent number to be concerned about. And that's the top 500 list. That's not, the bottom of the barrel, that 600, 700,000 mark on the App Store. That's the top 500 apps that were being downloaded. So that's, again, shouldn't surprise anyone with how many Android devices are out there and how much the criminals want to get at this user base. 2011 to 2012, we had a 163% jump in terms of malware found on the Android, the mobile devices, and again, the number is not as high for the other platforms, but starting to trend upward for us. And USA is one of the countries that is at one of the highest risks around the world for mobile malware. We have a large population with using mobile phones, and that equals a large population of people that are high risk for becoming infected. So it comes with the territory of how connected we are as a country.
Right, scary.
So, yeah.
What about apps from the Apple Store?
Relatively secure. I would say relatively because we have had a few instances where that has been breached, where criminals have gotten some bad apps out on the Apple App Store, but it's not as profound as it is on the Android side. So is it a problem that I would sit there and worry about right now? No. Is it going to become an issue probably the next 2 or 3 years? Most definitely. It's only going to take time. iPhone makes them a big percentage of the market out there, and Apple can only play police chief for up to a certain point, right? It is going to start happening on a larger basis. The Android side for the Google side has a larger issue because Google has a little bit more of a laissez-faire policy when it comes to the apps it allows on the store. Apple is very strict and stringent on that, which is good. Good, it has its good and bad, but it is good from a security perspective. But again, it's only a matter of time, right? Even the best systems are breached these days, so it's going to start happening. So be mindful of it. The biggest thing is if you're using an Android tablet or phone today, you need to start worrying about this because this is affecting you very heavily right now. And 91% of malware attacks from mobile devices are hitting Android. That was that count right up there. So it's a big issue. Hopefully I hit that point home with everyone. And again, this is something I touched on a little previously. Again, there's a lot of profit to be made out there. So a lot of people ask me, why are there people out there so mischievous? Why do they do this, right? The biggest reason is because there's money to be made from this. right? On the mobile phone side especially, there's text spamming that they can do, where they can rack up charges and money to a certain organization if they're sending out fake text messages off of your cell phone. There's apps that can go ahead and steal identities. That's been around, I mean, for more than a little while now. Phone can be controlled to call premium numbers without you noticing, so fake dials out to expensive 900 numbers. That happens all the time, where they can rake up charges to front companies for themselves. So all kinds of things that can be done. Same kinds of things that affect computers, but even more so on the mobile phones because of things like text messaging and phone calling that the phones have. So it's very profitable for these criminals. It's not like it was in the 90s where hacking and viruses was sort of a, hey, I'm better than you kind of a thing. Now it's a, we make a lot of money on this. And all those black markets, the darknet, if you've heard of the what's it called? What was the big black market on the web that was taken down? The Silk Road, I think it was called. Silk Road, you probably heard of that. That was in the darknet. It's a part of the internet that normal people can't access by default, but it's where these bad guys and the gangs hang out. They sell identities by the thousands. They sell guns and drugs and things on these markets. And the stuff they pilfer off mobile phones and computers, those are the markets where they sell these things. Credit card numbers by the millions. So, I mean, these are the kind of black markets that exist online these days. Three musketeers of modern malware. So when we talk about viruses, I shouldn't call everything a virus because most malware that's out there is not a virus anymore. It's just most people, when they think of infections, they think of viruses. So I perpetuate that bad term when I speak of viruses. But it's really called malware. Malware is the all-encompassing term when it comes to things that can infect our computers or our mobile devices. And the three biggest ones that are taking over on the landscape, I should have added a fourth one, botnet malware, but again, I didn't add that onto here. So if you want to make it four, botnet malware, as we talked about previously, that is a big one that's affecting things like routers and computers and phones and things of that nature. But the three that I have up on the screen here, ransomware. If you've heard of CryptoLocker, this was in the news probably about 3 to 5 months ago. Software that gets on your machine and pretty much uses encryption to your detriment because it encrypts your files behind your back and they take your data hostage. So the bad guys will go ahead, lock your hard drive up, and say, hey, you gotta pay us a bounty of $500 or $300. This was an FBI one that didn't ask for as much money. This was about 2-3 years ago. But the newest ones, they're asking for about $300 to $500 in like gift cards. So you gotta give them money in a very discreet way so they can't be traced. And if you don't do that, they're gonna lock your computer forever and you'll never be able to get those files back. Yep. So this is a very scary form of malware. Hasn't hit any of my customers yet or any of the businesses that we support. I like to think that's because of the good security software and practices we follow. But again, it is still a risk for everyone these days. And this can hit any kind of computer. It's been mostly hitting the Windows side of systems, but it's only a matter of time until Android, and it has actually hit Android. Android has had a few instances of it, and probably going to start hitting Mac within the next half year to a year. But again, people ask me, well, even if I get hit with that, can't I just get my data back? Can't you just get the magic key off my computer? As I said, if that magic key is only held by the criminals, I can't help you. There's nothing that can be done. The only thing you can do is truly have a backup of your data that you use to restore all the items that were locked up by them. That is the only way out. Well, the other way out is paying. I don't recommend paying. I don't recommend dealing with criminals like that. But if you, the only other way besides paying is going ahead and restoring from a backup that you have. And this hit a lot of organizations. There was a few police departments out east that actually paid to get their data back. So they did exactly what they're saying we shouldn't be doing, but they had no choice. They didn't have back to their data, so they have to pay these bad guys, a couple $1,000s to unlock their police department computers. So it's a big problem. Yeah. What's up?
I just heard of someone recently that had that.
Someone that got hit with this? Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Close to home.
It sounded really scary. If you have
How'd they resolve it?
I think they paid.
They did pay?
Yeah. If you have an external hard drive that, like I have an external hard drive that I keep hooked up to my computer.
Sure.
So something like that doesn't in some way affect your...
Well, they didn't used to. Now there are some advanced forms of this that do target all of your connected devices, as well as your, they target your connected devices and potentially other computers in the network as well. So really the best way to prevent against that, they've been saying, is cloud backup. So cloud backup, like CrashPlan is a good company you can use, where they send everything off-site. It's not connected to your computer, it gets sent off-site, locked down in a secure manner. I use cloud backup for myself and my company. So that's really the one way that you would be able to truly not have that risk of becoming, having that external drive locked down.
Okay.
Because then the malware attacks anything on the computer, but anything that's connected to it as well. Because at that point, when the drive is connected, it's a natural part of your computer. It's a natural extension. There's no reason the malware couldn't make the hop to get onto that drive.
That's what I was wondering. Now, is iCloud
iCloud is in some ways a cloud backup storage service. Yes, so you could rely on iCloud for that, as long as you use a good password for the service, and as long as you're making sure iCloud is backing up on a consistent basis. Then yes, you could use iCloud. Perfectly fine.
Thank you.
And then the other two, adware, not as much these days, but again, we still see it in some form or fashion. Adware is playing out in the form of fake antivirus programs a lot of times, especially on the Windows side. Program that looks like it's a security product, but it's actually a fake program, and it's scaring you into giving them a credit card number. So that's the form of adware that we've been seeing more so last few years. And of course, spyware has been around for a long time. The keyloggers, the programs that watch over where you're going. If you go to a banking website, they're going to siphon out your bank account number, things like that. So that's what traditional spyware has been. That's been around for more than a few years at this point. So those are the four musketeers, if you added the botnet programs, four modern musketeers of modern malware. Fake antivirus product, as I was talking about, this is how they look. I want to mention this really briefly because this does hit a lot of the customers that we do work for. These things come up, and these come as pop-ups. So you go on the web and you see an advertisement or something pops up and it says, computer infected, click here to disinfect computer. And of course the person is going to click on that little window and it brings up something like this. So it's a fake product that looks like it's a security program. It's got all these fancy terms, Windows 7 antivirus, and it's got official registration and support links and all the other items that you usually see in a security program. But of course what this thing is doing is running through a fake script behind the scenes just to scare you and tell you there's things on your machine when there potentially isn't. So these things were very popular about 3 years ago. Winding down a little bit, but again, still a big problem because they're very scary when they come up, right? If you, as an average person, saw this come up and you saw Trojans and this and that on your PC or computer, you'd be like, holy smokes, what happened here? I had the treasure trove of malware or something, so be mindful. Watch the titles that are used on the programs. The generic programs, these fake security products, like to use titles like Windows 8 antivirus, Windows 7 antivirus, Mac antivirus professional, very generic sounding names. If it doesn't have a proper company name attached to it, like ESET, Kaspersky, Symantec, something like that, more than likely it's one of these fake products, especially if it's using scare tactics of scanning without you allowing it to start the scan, and especially if it's blurting out for you to put a credit card number in. We need a credit card to clean your system. If that's the first thing that happens on your screen, it's usually too good to be true, and it's usually a fake security product. So just keep an eye out for these. If you're using a good security product like ESET or Kaspersky, they're going to block these things before they even get on your computer. So you don't have to worry about it at that point. But if you're not using protection, you are going to, at some point, potentially see something like that come on your computer. Talked about some of the places that we could get malware viruses previously. Again, maybe some of the areas I didn't touch on. Physical storage, external hard drives, just like flash drives, anything you can plug into your computer, CDs even, not as common today obviously, but CDs were even passing viruses and malware 8 to 10 years ago, so still a risk. Infected websites, this is probably the most popular, things on social media. These days, again, the places where people are hanging out, spending all their time, this is where the criminals are also spending all their time, right? So they tend to follow us with where we go. Since we're spending a lot of time in these places, they are passing all of their junkware and malware on through these outlets. And as I said, you need to be mindful of how you're using social media, how you're using and going on the web. Don't click on every single thing you see on Google. Be careful with what kind of links even friends put up on Facebook. be careful with messages that are put up on your Facebook wall from people with messages that are very generic sounding. Again, check out this free game. Something that is very out of the ordinary for someone to send you. And that goes for email as well, right? When we get spam email, happens all the time. Customers' machine gets infected. They're sending out spam to all of their address book recipients. And of course it has something in there. Hey, I found this awesome news article, click on it, and it's got a link to some hidden website, and you go to it, and you become infected, right? So don't consider trust only on the basis of who that came from, because that these days has been a busted theory. Because a lot of people we know have machines that become infected. So that's not necessarily how we should be looking at source of security, source of trust. Infected downloads, this is again very popular. The teenagers have the biggest problem with this. They're downloading the music and the movies these days, but even other people that are downloading free software, they want a free game, they want to play Sudoku, they want to do crossword puzzles, and the criminals are putting out all these infected links and downloads for you to grab that malware through those items. So that is another big target these days and something you need to be mindful of. You're downloading something, make sure you're going to a trusted download website. Don't just go to any website off the wall. There's a lot of great places like download.com, filehippo.com, all kinds of great sources like that where you can get good downloads that don't include infections behind the scenes. Goes without saying, again, I was talking about the movie downloading, music downloading, the teenagers especially, this is a discussion I have to have with them a lot of the times, torrent files, a lot of that illegal content that they like to download, that comes hidden with a lot of that good stuff. So you get more than you bargained for when you download things like that. Network, when I say network, that means other devices on your network. So just because your PC is secure, your Mac's secure on your home network, if you invite guests over to come over to your house and they have a machine that's infected or a tablet that's infected, things can travel. When you're on such a close tight-knit network, those things can travel. That goes into a discussion of why you should be offering up a separate wireless network for guests that come over. When we set up wireless for customers, most of the time these days now, we set up a separate guest network and a separate private network. So the family has its own private network, and there's a separate guest network that other extended family use when they come over, friends use when they come over. And the reason for that is because the guest network has some complete separation from the private family network. So we've been doing this in business world for many years, but the residential side has now been starting to do this too. So having two separate wireless networks so you can have isolation and separation between the two. So if Johnny's little friend comes over and he's got infections on his machine, he's not passing that stuff to the family's computer systems.
I just saw that in my own condo community. I opened up my phone to go to look for Wi-Fi,
sure.
and all the neighbors' Wi-Fi's pop up, and that Kenneth's guest Wi-Fi.
Yeah, so a lot of the good thing is a lot of the wireless manufacturers are starting to put that functionality into their devices. The little Meraki box that I showed on the hacking screen for the routers, they allow you to do that. So in my condo, I have a guest network set up. My parents have one as well. Very easy to do on a device like that. But again, if you're going out to purchase a wireless router, make sure at the very least it has that capability to do the guest network like that.
So you can partition in one router, one piece of hardware?
Exactly.
Okay.
You can partition out. You can do two separate signals, even though it touches the same internet connection. The network side of it, in terms of local devices, are virtually separated. So there's a brick wall between them.
Wow.
So even if there's infections, the person can still use internet on that guest side of it. They can touch the internet, but they can't touch any of the internal devices, the home computers, the home tablets, things of that nature. So that's the clean, kosher way to ensure that you're not passing infections between guests and yourself. And of course, mobile phones, big carriers of malware and infections through the app stores, through text messages, links that people are sending, through all the new apps that have communication capabilities. So again, a big problem. We talked about that already. Nearing the end a little bit here, so just a few more topics, and then we'll get to open Q&A. My small business is too small to be a target. So a lot of the business owners I talk with or we come in to consult with, they say, hey, I'm a really small business. I got a one-person shop, and who's going to target me? Why should I matter? The answer is you should care about that. Targeted attacks, these are numbers from Symantec, and this was 2012. These are already 3 years old in terms of the numbers. But 50% of all targeted attacks were targeting small and medium businesses. Remember, just because the biggest corporations have a lot of data and a big honeypot that could be accessed if the bad guys get in, The flip side is the small businesses don't have as much to give away, but they're a lot easier to get into because they don't care about their security as much. So we're kind of perpetuating our own problem when we're saying I don't have to worry about this because I'm such a small target. It's not true. You are becoming a target by not thinking about your security and saying that you're not going to matter to the bad guys. Because remember, the bad guys sitting in Russia, China, Eastern Europe, it doesn't take much effort for them to target you. It actually takes less effort for them to target you than it does a big corporation. Because a big corporation has a lot of money to spend on security. The small businesses and the homeowners, they don't have as much and they don't put as much thought into it. So small businesses are very, very big targets. And as you can see here, 73% of small businesses has either knowingly or unknowingly been targets of cyber attacks. It's a very large number. That's about 3/4 of all small businesses. Of those, 100% have experienced a negative impact due to the downtime, and the average cost of downtime for a small business, small and mid-sized business, is about $12,000 per day. Now again, that varies. That's an average number. It takes into account small and mid-sized businesses, but again, it's something that we should be concerned about. Passwords. I want to spend a few moments on good passwords. So, what does everyone think a good password is? You should take that screen back because that had the answer on it. What is a good password?
Long.
Spell it out for me.
Long for a start.
Long? How long? What's
18,
considered long?
18 to 24 characters.
That's super long. So that's way past best practice. So best practice is at least 8 characters.
Okay.
If you've got at least 8 characters, you're in a pretty good position.
All right.
But 18 to 24, wow, you're blowing it out of the park. So you're in very good territory. What else? Long? What else?
Use
Use the numbers.
Use numbers if possible.
Capital letters.
Use capitalization if possible. And what's another one?
Use the symbols.
They usually say have 3 out of 4 of these.
Use the symbols, like the
Symbols, yes.
or the
yes.
underscore.
Include symbols. And also something that is usually you're prevented from doing in some cases, but it's something good to keep in mind for yourself. Don't use a password that can be fully taken from a dictionary. One long string, either a phrase or a single word that comes straight out of the dictionary, because you become an easy victim of what's called a brute force dictionary attack. Criminals that have access to powerful systems that just throw dictionary combinations at your possible password. So that is the easiest one that they can break into, so never, never allow yourself to use a password that is easily just pulled from a word in the dictionary. A simple way that you can check your password to see how secure it is a website called howsecureismypassword.net. I like using this website to show everyone that you can simply find how secure your password is. Let's see, howsecureismypassword.net. So you enter a password in, give me a sample password, any password you think might be secure. Let's see what the system says. Let's do this. I love with a 0 for the O. Love my dog. Exclamation, exclamation, exclamation. So there we go. We got a green rating. It's telling us here that it would take about 125,000 years to crack that password. That's a good number. That's a long time. That's past anyone's lifetime. You become a very, very small target at that point. And what this is going into, and actually this is a screen that I bring up next. This is a theory called the password haystack theory. This was a theory come up with by a security researcher named Steve Gibson. He's one of the foremost experts in computer security. He's got a podcast he does every single week called Security Now. I listen to it from time to time, but even he bores me sometimes because he's so in depth and detailed with what he talks about. But he came up with this theory called the password haystack theory. He says, plain and simple, every password you can think of is like a needle in a haystack. How big is the haystack? How small is the needle? That's how you have to think of a password. That's all a password is, because every password is a possible combination that someone could potentially find, right? So it's our job to make that password haystack as big as possible and to make that needle very, very small, so you become a target that is not very juicy to the bad guys. Because the bad guys like easy targets. They like the people that use I like my dog, Jenna, password, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They love those people because they are very, very easy targets. So this simple website puts into action that haystack theory and allows you to test out and see how long it would take to crack your password. So let's do a simple password. Let's just show you what a bad password would look like. Password like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Your password would be cracked almost instantly. It is one of the most common passwords out there, so it wouldn't take much time to do it. But let's juice it up just a little bit. Let's do something straight out of the dictionary. Let's do I love Lucy. A little bit better. 22 minutes roughly to crack that password. It's a little bit more of a brute force needed to get past that. But again, most criminals that have powerful systems at their disposal, not going to take much time. All they're doing is matching up dictionary words, and they're able to get around that pretty easily. So again, I just want to get the notion past everyone in terms of what it takes to make a good, safe, secure password. All that takes is increasing your length, using capitals, using special characters, and adding numbers into it. And as you can see, every extra character and every extra number we add in, that becomes much more difficult. 112 quadrillion years to crack that goofy password I just put in. So, again, do we have to make a password that's not going to be cracked for another eon? No, of course not. But we have to make sure we're using something that allows us to have a layer of security where we're not a target that's being cracked in 20 minutes, 30 minutes. We want to make sure this number, I would say, is at least showing 4 or 5 years. 2, 3, 4, 5 years, right? That's the point where you are a target the criminal doesn't want to deal with, right? You're the person on the block that doesn't have the security system, and the other person next door has the door open, and they can easily break into that house and steal stuff from. That's what this discussion becomes about. Don't make yourself that easy target. Strengthen the password, and there are services like this, howsecureismypassword.net, where you can check your password strength. It's not something you have to guess anymore. These services exist, and they'll tell you exactly how strong your actual password is. Use them. They're at your disposal.
But how do you know which ones are...
I would check your password if I were you. Wouldn't you want to know how strong it is? You want me to check it for you?
What I like is a number of sites will tell you. They'll basically say, this. You go to put it in and they'll say, this is a weak password.
I will say something about that though. The definition that all those websites are using, their definitions are all over the board. I've seen some services that I use the same password for, and they tell me that password is rock solid. And another service will tell me that password stinks, and we won't even allow it. So they are all over the board in terms of their definition. I would feel more comfortable just checking that password against something like a website like this.
But how, other than this website, how do you know that any of the other ones are for real or not just, taking your password?
I mean, you could there's all kinds of different websites. There's another website that offers this. Actually, the one I put on this screen over here. Here we go. Password haystack calculator. This is actually the one made by Steve Gibson. So if you want the official one from the man that invented the theory, you can go to his version, and he does a very similar kind of thing. And you can test a password there, and he will go ahead and tell you how long 3 different kinds of scenarios take to crack that password. Someone that has very little computing power, someone that has a medium amount of computing power, and someone that has a lot of computing power to crack your password. So, password I just typed in, 7 hours to crack on the best computing system, or 100,000 centuries if they don't. So again, this is the guy that created the theory. I can guarantee you he's not stealing any passwords. But again, I would recommend you go on at least one of these 2. And if you want the safer one, it's probably it's from Steve Gibson's GRC website. It's a very good tool where you can go ahead and see, how your password stacks up against others. And here she tells you here, they check green light on the different things that have been included. So how many lowercase characters there are, whether you include digits, whether you had symbols, and whether you had any uppercase characters up on your password. So if I were you, I would check your password just to see what it looks like, and if it's not strong enough, you can easily go ahead and make it more secure and a little bit stronger. So very good tool. I highly recommend it. I show this off at every security class that we do. Go ahead.
How often do you change it?
Well, best practice says 90 days, right? I mean, that's in the business world.
Okay.
I tend to say once every half year is probably, for the home user, good enough. But I wouldn't use the same password for more than a year. If you're using the same password more than a year, you're going to fall victim to.
What happens if you have the spyware? You you should be running something to monitor that too.
Well, you should have a malware protection program on there that's watching for things before they get on your machine. You don't want to fall victim and then have to worry about cleaning it after the fact.
Right.
So that's what too many people do, and then they're like, well, was my identity stolen? Would I have passwords stolen behind my back? I can't answer that. I don't know all the sources and where all the malware, all the keyloggers, or potentially other data siphoning was going out to. I don't know. You know, I can clean off your PC. We can get it back to where it should be, but I can't research where all your data might have went.
Yeah.
So don't fall into that place. Just protect yourself, up front. And strong passwords are a big part of that equation. And here's actually a list. Actually, a list of the latest list. This is for 2014. Worst passwords of 2014. The most common passwords that people use. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 was the first one. Password. These two tend to take first and second spot and swap between one another, but please don't use either of those. Please don't use any of these top 10 lists. As you can see, they're all either very simple or they're all straight words out of the dictionary. And that's what makes them very bad passwords. Not only because they don't have special characters or numbers mixed in with them, but they're just very, very simple passwords. So if you're using one of these, no need to say anything. Just change your password when you get home, okay? Social media gut check, a few things on Facebook that I didn't mention already. Only friend people you know. Don't be adding in every single person that sends you a message on Facebook. Surprise, surprise, there's a lot of fake robots out on the internet making fake profiles, especially attractive women that is trying to get the guys to click on and add them as friends on Facebook. And what do? They're meant to just add you as a friend and then put on these spam links on your wall to lead you to malware-infected websites. So be mindful for that. Very commonsensical kind of thing, but people fall victim to it all the time. Don't open the links that seem fake or that seem too good to be true. Again, buy a MacBook Pro for $10 or these, things that try to get you to click on it based on your emotion. Wow, I got to get that deal. I got to get that sale or that freebie or something like that. Hold the horses and take a look at it before you click on it. Don't put your phone number on Facebook. Some people tend to do this. A lot of my friends tend to think that's okay. I wouldn't do that. There's no reason to be publishing your phone number on there. All the robots and spam bots are going ahead and pulling that right off all the profiles, so no need to be added onto any more spam lists than you're already on. Don't post when you're going on vacation until you get back. What do you think criminals do when they know that you're on vacation and your home is available because you've told everyone that you're on vacation? You're going to be a target. And this has happened to a lot of people. They've actually had full news stories on the Dateline or 2020 talking about people that have been broken into when they're on vacation because they were broadcasting this on the web. Again, common sense, but people do it still, so that's why I mention it. And if you're concerned about privacy, use the private feature on Facebook. You don't have to broadcast to the world. You can set it to private and only to show people that you know. Staying safe with email. We talked about some of those aspects in that slide. What I want to show primarily, the biggest thing that I want to make sure everyone sees is what a phishing email looks like. Because a lot of people, you probably get these email messages and you don't know which ones of them they are. And I wanted to just give you some of the biggest clues and flags from an email like this that shows that this is an actual phishing email. So this email message over here, this was a fake email from Microsoft trying to get someone to click on a link to validate themselves. Again, probably trying to siphon information from that person. But what are the things you need to look for in an email to determine whether it's a fake or whether it's a real email message? Very simply, a few things. This spam email or this phishing email used a restricted symbol in the from field. No legitimate company ever puts restricted or copyright symbols or trademark symbols in the from field of an email. That's a dead giveaway. That's coming from a fake person. Over here, broken images. If an email has a lot of broken images, even if after you've allowed all the images to be loaded, if the image still doesn't load, ding, 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 it's a giveaway, probably a fake. Look for the English, bad broken English over here. If you take a look and see what this says, it says, due to new vulnerability which is exploited by hackers to steal your online details, Microsoft Digital Crimes Unit in 2013 has hereby developed a new secure way for your security. What the heck does that mean? Microsoft or any large company, before they send emails out, have leagues of people that scan through emails, English experts, to make sure these mistakes aren't made. This is clear, bad broken English, probably coming from Asia, Russia, Eastern Europe, something like that. So just read the email. If it sounds like it's has language that's improper, it probably is coming from a fake party. And even over here, I think that was a spelling mistake. Yeah, they used the wrong tense, the wrong version of their to validate their email account. They used T-H-E-R-E. Very simple mistake that a real company wouldn't make. And again, the email was sent in 2014, and this email was date stamped 2013, Microsoft Digital Crimes Unit. Again, a little bit smaller of a detail in terms of a giveaway, but in unison, all these things together are a giveaway that this is a fake phishing email. So again, do that due diligence. Just because something makes it to your inbox doesn't mean it's not a phishing or a spam email, right? These email filters are not perfect. Things do get through from time to time. More of the same on phishing, things to look for. But again, here's another big thing. Watch your email links in email. What I was talking about, when you roll over a link, look at what this spammer tried to do. They tried to put a link to probably a legitimate banking website, and they make it look like it's very legitimate, but when you scroll over it, look where it goes to. It goes to a fake address, 192.168. blah, blah, blah. If you ever see a link that does that, where it changes the rollover location from the actual location highlighted in the actual text, that is a clear flag. That's going somewhere you shouldn't be going. Always use that feature. Every major email client and web browser has that functionality. Use it to your advantage. And my one last thing I'll say is in terms of email services, I have a lot of customers that are still on AOL. Why they're still using AOL, I have no idea. But AOL is one of the worst email services that you could possibly be using today. They have very poor security technology. They have very large spam, very poor detection rates on spam and phishing. Very, very, very bad. Please get off AOL if you're using them. But a lot of these other services, you may think they're good, but they also have a lot of issues with email security these days, and I deal with them all the time, which is why I bring this up. The Comcast, the RCNs, the Yahoo Mail, WoW, SBC Global is another big, big, nasty one. Two great options. There's no reason you can't use a good email service. You have Gmail at your disposal. Outlook.com is available. Two very, very good platforms. Gmail is run by Google. Very safe, very secure. Outlook.com is Microsoft's alternative called the Outlook service. So both of those are the ones that we recommend to people. Choose which one you want based upon, whichever one you feel most comfortable with, but you won't go wrong with either of those two services, Gmail or Outlook.com. And again, one of the other things that people don't think of that is not necessarily a security issue, but when you switch internet providers, so if you have a Comcast email address and you move to a different house or you change internet services, you don't get to keep that Comcast email forever. You're going to lose that. Some services like AT&T with SBC Global or AOL, you can keep paying them a monthly fee to keep the email address, but why would you pay when you have free services that are never going to take the address away from you? It boggles my mind. So don't fall victim to having to give up your email address when you change internet services. Just start off the bat and use a service that is not tied to an internet provider. Use a Gmail, use an Outlook.com. I'm sure there are a few others out there that you can trust, but those are the two biggest, most trusted names in email services out there today. And they're both totally free. Outlook.com gives you unlimited storage space for free. Gmail gives you a free 30 gigabytes of storage space. That's more storage space than anyone's ever going to use for email, so you don't have to worry about, are they going to give me enough room? And the final thing I'll say is on web browsers. Use a secure web browser. Google Chrome is the one that we like to recommend. It tends to have the fastest update cycle, and it also tends to have some of the best security features built in behind the scenes. So Firefox is very good. Internet Explorer is also pretty decent, but when it comes to which of those would I recommend the best out of all of them, Google Chrome is the one that really shines out of all those. And Google Chrome is completely free. You don't have to pay a thing. If you're ever asked online to pay for Google Chrome, you're not getting it from Google. I'll tell you that much. So, yes, go ahead.
Where does Safari fit on that list?
Safari, okay, the Mac site Safari, I would say is probably around where I put Firefox. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's not great. It was actually broken into at a recent security conference by a lot of hackers, so it has, probably as many holes as Firefox does. But again, the best one of these I would say is Chrome because they are very aggressive in how they update it. Chrome updates itself about once every 3, 4, 5 days. Safari is updated once every month and a half or so. Firefox about once a month. So if you're looking for the most secure, Google Chrome is definitely the one that is the best to go with.
And it runs well on the Mac as well.
Runs very well on the Mac, runs very well on Windows. You can get a Chromebook, and a Chromebook, all that runs is a Google Chrome browser. So a lot of great options that have Google Chrome out there these days. So that's my spiel. Hopefully I didn't drown everyone with too much security information. Questions? I want to take any questions from the crowd. I want to actually see if Charlie has any questions from our webinar as well. Let's see. No questions from Charlie. So I guess if anyone in the audience has any questions, we'll raffle off our 2 goodie bags in just a moment. But does anyone have any final questions before we cut off the recording?
Windows NT, is that considered old?
Windows NT is very old.
That's what my job uses.
Your job uses Windows NT? Holy smokes. That's dangerous. Windows NT was extinct in about 2002 or so. So if they're still running that, someone's definitely not keeping pace with technology over there. Windows NT is long, long extinct. I mean, Windows NT came out before Windows XP was out. That was predated XP by about 5 or 6 years. So ancient in computer years. So very, very old.
The advertisements on television about download this and we're going to sweep your machine. How do you trust? I guess it's the issue of trust. I just become so paranoid lately.
With what? In terms of what?
It sounds like some foreign person, download something to check your PC speed or your, how clean you are.
Those go in the category of fake security products. Those are a lot of those snake oil programs, as they call them. It's a snake oil. It's a snake oil product. Don't download those.
What about online tax doing your online taxes?
If it's from a trusted source, there's nothing wrong with it.
Is HTTPS or with SSS in the yellow up?
HTTPS is a good way to make sure that you're going to a secure source, secure website. HTTPS pretty much ensures that all communication happening off the website is encrypted. So just like the hard drive encryption we're talking about, HTTPS is encryption for your web browsing session. So yes, do watch for HTTPS. If you're going to a banking website, email websites, any kind of website that has personal information or shopping cart information or banking information, all of them are required to be using HTTPS these days. And if they're not, you need to think twice about using that service.
The product I buy, the Syntec or the ESTS or whatever that is, is it going to check my router?
No anti-malware product for a computer will check a router. That is something that is just completely separated from the computer aspect. Yeah, that's something where you need to have either like a professional like me look at it with you, or go to like a Best Buy, get an opinion from someone else. But there's no program you can run to check the router and tell you whether or not it's in good shape or not. There isn't.
Well, that's that botware stuff, right? You're saying the botware.
The botnets, yeah, botnets can take over those routers, yeah.
So you're just trying to put up the firewall between your server, between your router and your CPU, is what you're saying.
Exactly. But again, if you have an insecure router at home, I would look into replacing it with something decent, at least a decent one from Best Buy, or as I said, going with a cloud managed router like a Meraki device. A little bit more expensive, but if you want the top level security, that's what you have to do. That's where you have to go these days. So
should have had this class a month ago.
Any other questions? Anything else? And we're going to cut off the recording so we can do our raffle drawing and not catch any names on the recording. So, anything else? If you have any other questions while we're still here, while I'm still here, you can feel free to ask. But I'm going to chop the recording off. I appreciate everyone for coming out. Hopefully, everyone learned something. Yes. Come out to our future classes. We always have a good time. So, yes, one last question.
I want to compliment you on your
great job.
You did a good job.
Yes. Wonderful job.
No quiz today. I was going to quiz everyone.
Explanation.
That would have dropped things down.
No quizzing today. We'll leave the bad scores out of this. So.
You're a good teacher.
All right. Well, thank you. Let me.